All right, in that first video, we talked about the basics of DTF transfers, how they're made, how to press them, how to care for them, and just the basic information you need to understand what they are. In this video, we're not going to do much instruction, but we're going to go as far as hands-on with editing, but we're going to talk about some of the file basics and artwork basics that you need to understand to order DTF transfers. It's not that complicated stuff that most people already know, and really a lot of people just need a refresher course sometimes too, so stick around. All right, when it comes to the basics, I always recommend SVG files as a good starting point if that's what you have, because from an SVG file, you can pretty much create any other file format. You can ungroup it and edit or remove, add elements to it. You can bring it into Photoshop and make it a PNG file or whatever you want to do with it. So an SVG file is always a great place to start, but you don't have to have an SVG file. Now, I also want to point out that a lot of people use SVG as a generic term to say when they really want to say graphic image or a design. Not all files are SVG files. They are actually .svg. The file extension on them is .svg, scalable vector graphic, which means that you can bring it into a design program and adjust the size of it without affecting the quality in either way. You can make it bigger or smaller, and it's going to be the same file quality at the end of the product when you're finished adjusting it. Now you can use other formats. PNG and SVG are the two most popular ones people upload and use for DTF printing. You can do some others. You can you use JPEG files and remove the background or whatever you want to do with that. But generally, the SVGs and PNG files are the way people go with this. And as we get into some of the instructional videos in editing, you'll see the difference in why I recommend an SVG. But if you have high quality PNG files, those usually are adequate and they work well too. Now, if you are buying your designs from somewhere like Design Bundles or Creative Fabrica, we'll talk about Cricut here in a minute, but those designs are usually pretty good quality. You don't have too much to worry about in most cases. But if you're getting them from Etsy, there's a lot of people sell files on Etsy that they get into this. They said they're going to sell design files, and they don't know what they're doing, and it causes some problems. And there are actual professional designers on Etsy that don't quite understand some of the designing for crafters, and it can create some problems. Usually those are overcomable if you know what you're doing with them, but you just got to be aware of some of those things. If you're downloading files from Facebook groups, those can be any range of quality, from high quality, great files just like you would buy from a great designer, or they could be some of the worst. So beware of that. If you don't know how to look at the file, if you don't currently understand how to get to see what kind of quality that file is, you want to understand that before you order a DTF transfer, because they can come out horrible looking even though they look great on your device or on your computer monitor. Now, I have another video I published the other day about how to take designs from Cricut Design Space and bring them into Photoshop and edit them, get them ready for DTF printing. You want to do that through Print and Cut and save it as a PDF file, so go watch that video if you're interested in that. Say no to screenshots. No screenshots from any software. It doesn't matter how big your monitor is. Every monitor is the same resolution, for the most part. So if you're 1920 by 1080 HD monitors, whether your screen is this big or 40 inches, I have people say, well, I have a really large monitor, so I zoom out or zoom in as close as I can and make it as big as I can. It doesn't make a difference the size of your monitor. Monitors are only 72 to 96 DPI. Graphics for websites are only designed for 72 DPI usually, because it makes them faster to download and they look great on a device, because displays are really low resolution compared to print quality. So if you have designs in Design Space that you want to make with DTF transfers, you want to go watch that video on how to do that, because you want to do it as a print and cut. So that's a separate video that will be in this series here in this playlist. So make sure you watch that if that's what your intentions are. Now, the other designs you want to be careful of are sublimation designs. A lot of people think, well, if those are intended to be printed, those are perfect for DTF because it's printed. And that's not the case, because sublimation designs, a lot of them have those transparent areas that lets the garment show through, so it's being put on white, so it doesn't matter. And those would be areas that, if you put it on a pink shirt, they would be pink. And so those partially transparent areas that have faded lines and faded edges, smoke patterns, or whatever the case is, there's some ways we can get around that. We'll have a video on halftones. Get around some of that, but for all intents and purposes, if those designs are not 100% fill and opacity, so they're solid, you can't, if you put them in Photoshop and put a layer behind it like a bright red or pink or something, if you can't see any of that through their design, you should be okay. If you do that and you can see part of that showing through, or maybe the this area is yellow, and when you put red behind it, it kind of turns orange because it's partially transparent. Those are the things you want to be concerned about, because it puts that layer of white ink on the back of the design. Sublimation designs can be used, but not always. So keep that in mind and know what you're doing before you upload these designs and order them. The other thing that I like to point out are small details can be lost. I mean, I'm talking about very small details. The printer is very high resolution, but like I said, that white layer of ink, it insets the back of it, just like this picture here I have on the screen. And if you have thin lines or little dots that are, let's say you have a line that's only 4 pixels wide, like a really thin hairline detail. If we inset that by 2 pixels on the back, usually we do 1 or 2 pixels. I prefer 2 if I can. But if it's 4 pixels wide and I inset 2 pixels on one side, 2 pixels on the other side, there's nowhere for it to put white ink behind it and nowhere for it to pick up the powder adhesive. You're probably going to lose that detail, or it's going to look real sketchy on the garment, maybe not even stick very well because you don't have enough adhesive behind it. So those are the things that you want to be careful of, and we'll get into some of that and how to look for it and how to spot other what I call artifacts in images. A lot of people do background removals, and it leaves behind little spots that you want to watch for, because anywhere where there's a pixel of ink is where it's going to print and then put a dot of white behind it. So you want to be aware of how clean your images are before you order or transfer. Now, when it comes to the image quality, what we really want to strive for is a 300 dpi or dot per inch image. If the image is solid colors, you could probably get away with 200 dpi and you won't be able to see a difference with the naked eye in most cases. But if it has shading in it and different colors and things, 300 dpi is the standard we kind of go by, and that's what we want to use when we create images. And that we don't want to, there's no reason to not create 300 dpi if you have SVG files to create your designs from. Now, to explain this very simply, a lot of people already know this, some people just need a refresher, some people watching this may not understand it at all, but when we talk about graphic image quality, if you look at the Cricut mat, every square is 1 inch. And so if I had a line all the way across this image, this is 12 inches, and if I put 300 dots between every line, every grid square, that would be a 300 dot per inch image. It would have 3,600 dots all the way across this for a 12-inch line. And if it was 1 pixel tall by 300 dpi all the way across, it would look like a solid line, even though it's dots. They're so close together. And if you zoom way in, you're going to see that they're right beside each other and pretty much touching, and it's going to be a solid line. Now, if I did that at monitor resolution, computer monitor at 72 dpi, that can be 72 to 96, but we'll stick with 72 because that's what web images usually are. You would only have 72 dots between each 1 inch, and so over 12 inches, what's that, 864 dots or something like that. So you would have 300 dots per inch at 3,600 pixels versus 864 pixels. So it would probably look like a little dotted line more so than a solid line. So if we talk about the overall image quality, we'll work with some round numbers here so I can do error math easier. If we had a 10 by 10 image, so if this was 10 inches by 10 inches at 300 dpi, that would be 3,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels. If you multiply that out in that 10-inch by 10-inch image, that would be 9 million pixels in that image. If it was a 72 dpi image at 10 inches by 10 inches, it would only have, what's that, 500,000 or so pixels. So 500,000 pixels versus 9 million pixels in the same area, you're going to see a quality difference. One of the tips I tell people is, if you don't know how to check your image, an easy test you can do is print it on your home printer, as big as you can print it, and if it looks good, it's probably going to be a decent quality DTF transfer. If it looks blurry and splotchy and blocky, that's what is going to come out when we print it, or anyone else. So we're going to get into some of the apps and things you can use to improve photographs and all that, but for the purposes of this video, we just want to talk about these image quality things and the things you're going to want to understand, the things you're going to want to watch for and look at. And on our website, if you go to the DTF transfers menu and go to the upload guidelines, you can click this button. You can drag and drop your image into this, and it will tell you what your resolution of your image is and the dimensions. Now, one thing is, if certain types of PNG files do not have a dot per inch saved inside the image, so you can't tell. You would have to calculate it sometimes. If you have a PNG file and it is 3600 by 3600 and you open it up in Photoshop and it's a 12-inch by 12-inch image, that means it's 300 dpi. It's just simple math of calculating that out in a dot per inch. But if you drag a JPEG in here and other certain types of PNG files, I don't know why some PNG files don't have that information. I've never really looked into the technical specifics of why, but you just got to watch for that. And if your image is pretty large, if it's through 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 pixels by whatever, it's probably going to be pretty good shape. But ultimately, if you want to do your own designs, get them ready, and order DTF transfers, you really just need to get those images edited, know what good quality images you're working with. And of course, if you have SVG files, those are the best, because you really shouldn't have to do much to them to bring them in. Whether you're bringing them into our online gang sheet builder or bringing them into something like Photoshop, you should really have minimal problem with that, to have those images ready to order transfers from us. So that's the basics of image quality and some of the things you want to look for. I just wanted to go over that verbally with you, and then we're going to get into some tutorials on editing images and what these things look like when you're working with them, as well as some different tutorials with Photoshop and some other programs on what you're looking for. So if you have any questions or comments, post them down below the video.